afternoon. You're watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Lina Tamim, and these are today's top stories. Iran's nuclear deal triggers mixed reactions. While Western nations welcome it, Israel says it is a historic mistake. Rebel forces withdraw from Yemeni President Abd Rabbu Mansour Hadi's palace in Aden after overnight air raids by the Saudi-led coalition. And Lebanon buries Sergeant Ali Bazal, a policeman killed by the Nusra Front while in captivity. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will lead talks with senior security officials following the striking of a framework nuclear deal between Iran and world powers. Local media reported that Netanyahu had called a meeting of his security cabinet, including ministers as well as senior officials from Israel's security services. The outline agreement aimed at curbing Iran's nuclear drive was clinched on Thursday after marathon talks in Switzerland and marks a major breakthrough in a 12-year standoff between Iran and Western countries, which have long announced that a concern that Tehran wants to build an atomic bomb. Reading out a joint statement on Thursday evening, EU Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini said a decisive step has been reached. Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif called it a win-win outcome, while U.S. President Barack Obama hailed the deal as a moment that the U.S. and its allies had reached a historic understanding with Iran.
All Security Council resolutions will be terminated. It will be an end of Security Council resolutions that have been adopted against Iran, starting from Resolution 1696 and ending with Resolution 1929. All of them will be terminated. Now, there will be certain limitations that some countries wish to impose against the Islamic Republic, and those limitations which do not include limitations in areas of finance, trade and economy, and may include, from their perspective, proliferation areas, may continue for in our view, a brief period of time and then suspended and terminated. This is the gist of the agreement, but we hope to be able to work out the final details of all of these agreements as we go on in the next 3 months. And it is a major issue that we need to put in writing and then present to the Security Council as a draft resolution, which will not be presented by Iran, in fact, but presented by members of the E3+3. All of the participants in this process were interested in seeing to it that this resolution gets implemented, that if we reach an agreement, we can implement the agreement. We're not looking for excuses to violate them. We are looking for safeguards to protect our interests if one side decides to violate its obligations. That is correct for Iran as well, because Iran has been the victim of many broken promises in the past, and we want to be sure that if promises are broken again, we will be safe and our national interests will not be forgotten or compromised.
Now let me re-emphasize, our work is not yet done. The deal has not been signed. Between now and the end of June, the negotiators will continue to work through the details of how this framework will be fully implemented, and those details matter. Remember, I have always insisted that I will do what is necessary to prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon, and I will. But I also know that a diplomatic solution is the best way to get this done. Of course, this deal alone, even if fully implemented, will not end the deep divisions and mistrust between our two countries. We have a difficult history between us. If, in fact, Prime Minister Netanyahu is looking for the most effective way to ensure Iran doesn't get a nuclear weapon, this is the best option. And I believe our nuclear experts can confirm that. More importantly, I will be speaking with the Prime Minister today to make clear that there will be no daylight, there is no daylight, when it comes to our support for Israel's security and our concerns about Iran's destabilizing policies and threats towards Israel.
For his part, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry says the United States remains seriously concerned about Iran's destabilizing activities in the region. He also talked about sanctions relief Iran will get, noting it will be conditional on compliance with terms of the deal and reversible.
Today we have reached a critical milestone in that quest. We, our P5+1 EU partners and Iran, have arrived at a consensus on the key parameters of an arrangement that, once implemented, will give the international community confidence that Iran's nuclear program is and will remain exclusively peaceful. And today I can tell you that the political understanding with details that we have reached is a solid foundation for the good deal that we are seeking. It is the foundation for a deal that will see Iran reduce its stockpile of enriched uranium by 98% for 15 years. It is a deal in which Iran will cut its installed centrifuges by more than 2/3 for 10 years. It is a deal that will increase Iran's breakout time, which was confirmed publicly today to be 2 to 3 months. And that is the time that it would take Iran to speed up its enrichment in order to produce enough fissile material for one potential nuclear weapon. And that will be expanded now under this deal to 1 year from those 2 to 3 months. We have agreed on the most challenging and overarching issues. But now there are a number of technical decisions that need to be made, and there are still policy decisions that have to be made. But we have the outline, we have the basic framing, if you will, the construction. And as we continue on, the United States and our P5+1 partners will exhibit the same vigilance, the same unity of purpose, the same comprehensive approach, and the same good faith among us that has brought us this far.
Now in Lebanon, sadness engulfed the Bekaa Valley town of Bazalieh as residents prepared to bury Ali Bazal, a policeman killed by the Nusra Front while in captivity. Residents and relatives showered Sergeant Bazal's motorcade with rice and flowers as it reached the town this afternoon. The Lebanese army on Thursday retrieved the body of the 27-year-old who was shot dead by Nusra militants last December. Bazal is survived by a wife and a young daughter. The Saudi embassy in Beirut has tasked a team to sue Al-Akhbar newspaper after Saudi Ambassador Ali Awad Asiri accused it of publishing rumors about Riyadh. Al-Watan Daily says Al-Akhbar is seeking to promote the principles of the resistance axis, referring to the Iran-Hezbollah-Syria alliance. Al-Watan also quoted Asiri as saying that the pro-Hezbollah Lebanese newspaper is promoting lies against Saudi Arabia and its leadership. Asiri said it was time to put an end to this. Hezbollah and the Future Movement exhibited their commitment to shielding Lebanon from regional turmoil during their 9th round of talks, despite deep rifts which emerged over the Yemen war. During a nearly 3-hour meeting held at Speaker Nabih Berri's residence in Ain Tini, the two sides discussed the paralysis of state institutions and the implementation of a security plan across Lebanon. Berri described negotiations between Iran and world powers over Tehran's nuclear program as the biggest political and diplomatic marathon in history after a framework deal was announced last night. The speaker told his visitors that Lebanon will stand to gain from a nuclear agreement, which he described as an important step toward resolving the crisis in the region. Berri also expressed hope that the world will increase its concern with solving Lebanon's political crisis, since it is the least complicated of all regional issues. Spain's King Felipe VI will visit Lebanon next week for talks with officials and an inspection tour of Spanish peacekeepers deployed in the south of the country. Local daily El Jamhuriya says Felipe will arrive in Beirut on Tuesday, accompanied by a high-level ministerial delegation. The visit will be Felipe's first to Lebanon since he took the throne last June from his father, King Juan Carlos. And coming up next, Kenya families mourn their loved ones after the Garissa massacre. More after the break. Welcome back. Rebel forces have withdrawn from Yemeni President Abd Rabbu Mansour Hadi's palace in his former southern stronghold in Aden after overnight air raids by the Saudi-led coalition. The rebels had seized the hilltop complex a day earlier after fierce fighting with supporters of Hadi, who has taken refuge in Saudi Arabia. Under pressure from pro-Hadi fighters, the rebel forces retreated to the nearby central district of Khor Maksad. On another note, al-Qaeda militants are now controlling large parts of a provincial capital in southeastern Yemen, a day after freeing 300 inmates in a jailbreak in the chaos-racked country. Several hundred armed militants flying the black banner of the extremist network were seen patrolling and setting up roadblocks in central and western areas of Mukalla, the capital of Hadramaut province. Grieving relatives were searching for news of the remains of their loved ones after Somalia's al-Shabaab fighters killed at least 147 in a university in northeastern Kenya. The day-long siege of Garissa University College was Kenya's deadliest attack since the 1998 U.S. Embassy bombings and the biggest ever by the al-Qaeda-affiliated fighters. Although the Kenyan government vowed it will not be intimidated, survivors recounted how the gunman taunted students before killing them, including forcing them to call their parents to urge them to call for Kenyan troops to leave Somalia. The day-long siege ended with all four of the gunmen detonating suicide vests in a hail of heavy gunfire. At least 79 people were also wounded in the attacks on the campus, which lies around 200 kilometers away from the border with Somalia. Investigators say data from the second black box found in the wreckage of their Germanwings flight that crashed last week in the French Alps confirmed the co-pilot acted deliberately. Authorities found the second black box, which contains technical flight data, on Thursday after a grueling 9-day search in difficult mountain terrain. Investigators say the first reading shows that the pilot in the cockpit used the automatic pilot to descend the plane towards an altitude of 100 feet. Then several times during the descent, the pilot changed the automatic pilot settings to increase the aircraft's speed. Christian pilgrims from around the world filled the narrow streets of Jerusalem's Old City in a procession on Good Friday to mark the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. The pilgrims retraced the steps of Jesus, is said to have taken along the Via Dolorosa, Latin for the way of suffering, on the way to his crucifixion. There are 14 stations along the route, each marking an event that befell Jesus on his final walk. The final 5 stations are inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is built over the area where many Christians believe Jesus was crucified and finally laid to rest before being resurrected on Easter Sunday. Palestinian Christians held a similar procession in the West Bank. The U.S. Coast Guard has rescued a sailor who has reportedly been missing for more than 60 days. NBC television says 37-year-old Louis Jordan and his disabled sailboat were spotted off the coast of Cape Hatteras by a German-flagged ship some 200 miles off the North Carolina's coast. A Coast Guard helicopter brought Jordan to the Centera Norfolk General Hospital, where he was able to walk on his own. He was reportedly dehydrated and suffering from a shoulder injury. He survived by eating raw fish and drinking rainwater. This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our headlines. Iran's nuclear deal triggers mixed reactions. While Western nations welcome it, Israel says it is a historic mistake. Rebel forces withdraw from Yemeni President Abd Rabbu Mansour Hadi's palace in Aden after overnight air raids by the Saudi-led coalition. In Lebanon buries Sergeant Ali Bazal, a policeman killed by the Nusra Front while in captivity. Those are your headlines for this Friday. I'm Linda Tamim, wishing you all a very nice weekend.